Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to make the radial design. If you're to this step, you should have your scoring on the back, you should have your name and your period on the back of your tile, and you should have already practiced some of your designs that you're going to use to imprint onto your tile. So the radial design is one that looks like this. We have circles of design instead of rows or lines of our design. This one is a little more complicated, but it ends up looking really, really cool. You do have to focus a little more with this one, really concentrate on where you're putting your things. It takes a little bit longer, but for those of you that are up for a challenge or really just do prefer this design over something that is going to be horizontal or diagonal or wavy, then this is definitely something that you would want to do. Then I'm going to show you how to do it. So the first step, you are going to need one of these, either a ruler or a right edge. And what you're going to do is you're going to make an X across your tile from corner to corner. So you're going to line up your ruler or right angle from corner to corner, and really lightly with your pencil, not a needle tool, just drag that pencil across the surface. A line that is light enough for you to see, but something that won't be super noticeable once we go to stain this and once we have the pattern on it. So I'm going to do mine a little bit darker so that you guys on the video can see. But when I'm dragging my pencil across, I'm not pressing. I'm just letting the weight of the pencil create the line. So I don't know if you can see this, but hopefully it's dark enough so that you can kind of see it. And so you're going to make an X that goes across. So right in the center of that X, that's where your first design is going to go. So what I think I'm going to do for mine, I'm going to do my star stamp like this. Or actually, that's what I did for this one. Maybe I'll make it a little, no, I'll do the similar one. So star stamp goes right in the middle of that X. And remember, when you're imprinting this, you want to do it deep enough to where you start to see a shadow, but not so deep that it's going to weaken our tile. So about 1/8 of an inch, kind of like how we did our score lines. And then this is where it gets a little bit tougher. And I'm gonna actually, you guys don't have to do this, I actually wouldn't advise doing this, but I really want you to see my X in the video so that you know where I'm doing these stamps. So I'm gonna do mine a little bit darker, but you guys wanna keep yours just light enough for only you to see. So now in the video we can see the X a little bit more. So now when you go on to doing your second impression, what you're gonna wanna do, your second, whatever tool you're gonna use, I'm gonna use the end of the brush. You're gonna wanna start with just 4 on each of those lines. So I'm gonna do 1 here, 1 on this line, and I'm making sure that I'm an even distance on each of these from that original stamp in the middle. So I'm doing about just a little bit of space. And so we have these 4 dots, 1 on each line. And then from there you decide, okay, how many more dots can I fit in between these so that I can make kind of that circle pattern. I think I can do probably about 2, kind of close together, but I think I can make it with 2. So then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of really lightly, I'm not gonna press it in all the way, I'm just gonna give myself a guideline, try to see where I can do these. So that's kind of my guideline, so I think I can do that. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go through and press those in. So remember, it's always better to go too shallow than too deep, because then you can kind of give yourself a little bit of a guideline of what to do. And so now we have that circle. And so even my circle is not perfect. That's okay. Once you get the whole pattern going, it's gonna look nice and radial no matter what. So if your first circle isn't perfect, that's okay. If you want to, I'm gonna show you right now how you can use a circle stencil that we have in class to kind of help you get that perfect circle. So I'm going to grab one of these circle stencils that we have. So we have one of these, and we also have a larger version. this. I'm going to show you how you can start to use these if you do want to get very, very clean, organized circles. So my next one, what is my next one going to be? I think I'm going to do this end of the pen cap. So I'm going to stick with circles. And so what you want to do is you want to find kind of about how big your next circle wants to be. So I'm going to use this one, my stencil. I want it to be about that big for where my next stamp is going to go. Actually, you know what? Because this stamp, I think it's going to be too close. So I'm actually going to use I'll use that one. Okay. Let's go with this one. Okay. So I want to make sure I put that on there nice and even, so it's evenly spaced around. Just like that. And I'm going to lightly, with my pencil, trace that stencil. Just a line that only I can see and no one else. And then on that line is where I'm going to know where to put these. So I'm still going to start by going with my 4 corners. And if you guys can see where that line was drawn, I'm doing my impression, the bottom of my circle is touching that line. And now I'm going to figure out, okay, how many of these can I fit in between? No, maybe 1, 2, 3. I'm going to do 3. Maybe I'll space these ones out a little bit. So if I'm doing 3 in between, a good call to do is do 1 right in the middle. It's kind of easier to find the middle. So I'm going to start with 1 right in the middle of each of these, with the bottom of the circle touching that line, and then I'm going to do 1 on either side. And that's a really good trick to kind of start to evenly space these. And when you're imprinting these onto your design, don't hold it up like I am. This is a bad example. I'm just doing it so you can see better in the camera, but you're going to want to do this flat so that your tile doesn't get warped. So now we have a nice circular design. I have my 3 different stamps that I'm using, so now I'm going to go back to the sun stamp that was in the middle. So I am going to use this again. And let's see, I think, I'll use, this is probably a good size. Right here, I'm going to line it up again. Use my pencil to very lightly trace that circle around. Very lightly, very neatly. And now I'm going to stamp, remember stamp 1 on each corner, even though you're using the stencil. This is going to help you evenly space and determine how many you can get in between. And so now I'm going to figure out, okay, maybe I can do 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I'm going to do 4 in between. So I'm going to do 2 towards the middle to start out with. And this is just how I do it. This is what helps me evenly space things. If you just want to go for it and do all 4 at once, you can. But this is just how my brain works. Going through, getting all of those, and now we have our next one. So now you're going to continue that and do my next layer. And now, here we come across a problem with our stencils. We don't have any stencils that go bigger than this, but you can see that this biggest stencil, I can't go any bigger than that. So what you're going to do, if you want to try to use another stencil, you can, or by now, this is where it gets a little bit easier to eyeball it. You could find something else in class that is circular, that is about the same size, but it may be hard to find something that's going to be a good size for that. This actually might work. But we have a bunch of things that are circular in class, and you can try. So let's try this one out. I'm going to make sure it's evenly spaced around. See if I can draw my circle. And it doesn't work that well because I can't see where I'm putting this, so it doesn't look great with my pattern. I drew that unevenly. So I'm just going to eyeball it for this next one. I have a good kind of circle to guide me from the last one that I did, so I think I can eyeball it pretty well. So I'm going to use, back to the brush, end of the brush, I'm going to go on those 4 corners first. And now this one is where you don't really have to count out because we're going to do a ton. So you don't have to count out and be like, I think I can fit 15 in between. As long as you're evenly spacing them, if one has 11 and one has 10, it's really not going to be that noticeable. But now it's going to be a little bit easier for me to follow that circular pattern because I can just go by the designs that I just did and kind of eyeball it. And it may not be perfect, but that's okay. Once these are stained and designs, they really don't have to look perfect. The pattern has so much going on with it that if you don't have perfect circles, it's completely fine. So now I'm going to go back to my other pattern. I'm going to finish this up. All right, and now we have our completed pattern of the radial design. The key when you're getting out to the outer edges is that you want to have your pattern go off the edge and continue it as if it, just got cut off immediately. So you don't want to make your circular pattern start to kind of square off by trying to fit the whole stamp in. You want to try to kind of cut it off on the edges so that it just looks like this continuous design. That's the trick to doing these radial designs and making them look nice. So after you do that, you're going to very carefully take your tile off of the piece of paper towel. You're going to grab one of the paddles and you're going to paddle the edges of your tile. Square them off nice and good. It's a little bit easier if you go up and down with it. So you have a nice clean looking tile. And that is how you make the radial pattern on your tile.